sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's supposed to be a motivating factor. And then in case that wasn't enough, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. ما يؤمرون. And not only and not only are they people that that they're constantly watching, these are angels that never disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He commands. And they're constantly being commanded as well. These angels that are out there for managing the hellfire, don't think anyone can smooth talk them or do anything. The description gets more and more vivid. Why? Because it's supposed to be that in case you forgot how severe this was, it's even more severe. So when your family says something, when you are in a state that you are forgetting the hellfire, next vivid description, next vivid description, next vivid description. So that it truly does motivate you to make sure to stick with, make sure that your resolve isn't at all broken. More descriptive, more descriptive, more descriptive. And this is really a summation of the descriptions that are kind of found of hellfire. I could actually go on and on about the specifics of if you do this sin, this happens to you. There's one that says that the person, Rasulullah said that there was a person whose tongue was pulled out and then chopped up and stuffed right back into their mouth. And that was supposed to be for the individual who had the opportunity to memorize and actually memorize a lot of good knowledge. Specifically, it was said that they memorized the Quran and they forgot it completely or they didn't implement it at all. That's tongue is being punished. It can go on and on, but it's supposed to be this recognition. Yes.
Is it kabira min al-kaba'ir, right? It's like if you remember the Quran and suddenly you forget it, and you don't even care about it. It's like kabira. It's right. Mm-hmm.
It's this idea of there's a couple of riwayat on it. One of them says
it's like you're gonna be asked in qabr. It's like when you get it down, it's like you're gonna be punished on that. It's like
so it's this idea of an individual. It's actually worse, and this is something that is one of the concepts of Jahannam is the more ability you had, just like this will be the case when we talk about Jannah as well, but the more ability you had to make an active decision, the more weighty that decision becomes. So it's the understanding, someone who memorized the Quran and had the opportunity to do all of these amazing things, yet they didn't, you are tried by nothing except for your own potential. So your punishment would be more severe in that case. And actually the lowest depths of hellfire, this is the last thing I will say about hellfire, inshallah. The lowest depth of hellfire is actually reserved for the munafiqeen. And they are the epitome of this recognition of someone who sees the truth in front of them, but actively chooses to pretend to quote unquote be practicing. The munafiqs are called the hypocrites, the people that recognize the truth and use that for their own gain. And fake whatever situation that they're in for their own personal gain, but don't actually accept the truth. That's the lowest depths of hellfire, and that's supposed to show these are the actions that are the most severe and the most punishable in the akhirah. So with that's been just a description. I will give the disclaimer because there's a lot of people here right now who weren't here for the beginning, and it's just been depressing after depression after depressing description. We started off this conversation in a way where, with a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah, which said that there's three types of worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's three types of people that put themselves in the servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's one type of person that it's kind of like the slave who fears punishment from his master. There's a slave who is very scared at every moment that their master is going to do something, their master is going to punish them. So they'll do whatever they can to just get away from that punishment. And the Quran appeals to that type of person. The Quran appeals to that mentality by describing descriptions of the hellfire. And then he says there's another type of servant of Allah. It's kind of like an employee. It's kind of like a person who works for money. That they know that if I do this, I will get this. If I pray, I will get Jannah. If I pray even more, I'll get a higher level of Jannah. My castle will be even bigger. They have this type of mentality. And then he says, and that's a better place to be because you have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a better place, but that's still not the best place. The best type of believer, the best type of the one who's in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who acts because they want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they're afraid of disappointing Allah. It's kind of like the child who wants to impress their parents. Maybe you're looking forward to the reward and maybe you're afraid of the punishment, but the key thing that's motivating you to obey your parent, to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this instance, is because you love Allah. You don't want to do anything that disappoints Allah. And it said for this person, there are two Jannahs. There's a taste of Jannah in this life, and then there's Jannah in the Akhirah. There's a taste of Jannah in this life. And we hope to kind of be there. And actually something that, there's a narration that supports this style of viewing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and supports one of the purposes of the hellfire and what the hellfire eventually gets to. There's a lot of theological conversations that take place on, is the hellfire going to exist forever? Is everyone eventually going to get out of the hellfire? There's a lot of different commentary on it. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Bayyinah, when He talks about the kuffar, He says, خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا, but when He talks about the believers, He says, خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا. So there's a lot of different theological conversations around that, but there's one narration from the Prophet ﷺ that's found about what he describes as the last person to exit from Jahannam. The last person to ever leave this wretched place. And actually it said that this person, remember we said even one day in Jahannam, the person who had, or one moment in Jahannam, the person who had the most luxurious life, they're at a point where they've never seen anything good in their life, they've never felt any comfort in their life. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that there was this one person who he just gets out of Jahannam, and he's out of Jahannam and it's basically like an empty field. And he's out of Jahannam and he thinks he is the luckiest person in all of creation. He thinks that he has the best station of all of creation. Why? Because he's out of Jahannam. That's how bad it was over there. And he's actually in nothing. It's described, he's in an open plain. And then he sees off in the distance, he sees a tree. And he's like, I wish I could at least get to that tree. Ya Allah, get me closer to that tree. I want to at least get to that tree. He makes dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this person's out of Jahannam now. Remember, in Jahannam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't respond to them. This person's out of Jahannam. Allah gets him closer to that tree, and he sits underneath its shade, and he's just like, this is it. I have the best thing anyone could ever have. I have this tree. I have the shade of this tree. Nothing could get better. He looks off in the distance, and guess what he sees? He sees a bigger tree. It's like, Ya Allah, I won't ask for anything ever again, but can I get to that one? That tree. It looks better. That one has fruits on it. Mine doesn't have fruits. That one's got fruits. And Allah accepts his dua, and Allah takes him over to the next tree. And then a third time the same thing happens, where he sees like, mine's a mango tree, mine's an apple tree, that's a mango tree. Apples don't compare to mangoes. Can I get to that one? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, you can get to that one. And he's feeling like, whoa, everything I'm asking for is being answered. I must be the luckiest person that has ever been created. I'm getting blessings that no one else has ever gotten. And actually, this is the last person to exit Jahannam. This is that last individual. But he's thinking, no one has it better than I do. And at that moment, he starts hearing, actually, people laughing and smiling and singing. I don't know how you hear people smiling, but people singing. He starts hearing all of these people having a great time. And he's thinking, where is this coming from? And he hears off in the distance, he sees the gates of Jannah, and he hears the gates of Jannah and the enjoyment people are having there. And he thinks to himself for a long time, no. Can I ask Allah? No, I can't. I can't ask Allah for anything. He thinks to himself for a long time, and in one narration it actually says that he waits for 40. And again, it doesn't say what 40 actually is. But he's hesitating. Can I ask? Can I ask? Can I ask? And he gets to the point where he asks Allah. Again, Yeah, Allah, I told you last time I wouldn't ask for anything. I told you that the first time too. But can I peer over and see what's going on behind those gates? I really want to just see what's behind those gates. And this narration, actually, it said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started smiling. And one of the things, this is a totally side comment, but one of the things that we have recently lost when we narrate hadith is there was a quality. There's a reason that hadith were passed on from person to person and not just read in books. Because the style of saying a hadith was also something that was preserved. Because it was said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had mentioned this in a certain way, and a companion in the chain of narration, when he was narrating this hadith, the companion suddenly started laughing and smiling to the point where his teeth were showing. And the other companions are like, what are you laughing for? And he's like, I'm laughing because Rasulullah laughed when he said this. And apparently, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that moment actually said that Allah laughed. And Allah was smiling at that moment to that last person who exited hellfire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala smiles and says, I will give you what the best, I will give you the earth and it's like, and it's like, and it's like. Basically says, I will give you all of the pleasures and wealth that anyone could have ever had on earth 10 times over. And the person is looking and he's hearing this and he's figuring, this is a joke. He says, Ya Allah, the best way I can translate this is don't play with me. Stop making fun of me. You're making fun of me. And at that moment it says, Allah smiles and Allah laughs at this person. It says, who do you think you're speaking to in this moment? Who do you think you're speaking to in this moment? He could give as much as as that person could ask for, and it wouldn't lower Allah's bounties in the slightest. Allah can give you this and more and more and more, and it wouldn't lower Allah in the slightest. Enter into Jannah. Jannah is for you. Jannah is for you. And this person enters into Jannah, and their narration ends there. But it said that he enters into Jannah, and one of the comments is that one of the Sahaba made about this particular hadith. When I had studied it with my teacher, he goes, he could have asked for anything. He could have asked for anything. He could have asked for the highest place in Jannah. He could have asked for this. He could have asked for this. He could have asked for this. Why didn't he? And my teacher actually responded that there are different ways for us to understand this. But one of the things that is put forward is it said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly, even when this person was in Jannah, kept saying, and what else? And what else? And what else? And what else? And that was the station of this person afterward. This is the last person to exit out of Jahannam. This was kind of the mercy that was being put forward. And the reason I wanted to make sure that I mentioned this in the talk about hellfire is we don't have this understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to punish people. We don't have this understanding that Allah has created people for the hellfire. That's not what we think. That's not how we should view Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This last person that exited hellfire, Allah wants to give him whatever he wanted. Allah laughed and Allah smiled at him. Allah doesn't want to put people in hellfire.